Hello and welcome to part 3 of box 11 of My Media Museum's 45 RPM vinyl records collections. Mixed boxes still. And we've got as a memories sleeve from A&M Records, which was their version of the reissues. And we've got Goodbye Stranger from Supertramp, 1979's Breakfast in America. And on the B side of that one, which is a bit unusual actually for A&M's, we've got another song from Breakfast in America, which is the Logical Song, which is another really great song. Both of these are just awesome Supertramp songs that I love, and I do have them on other copies without the other songs on the B-sides here. So either one of these could be an A-side in my opinion, the Logical Song or Goodbye Stranger, which they were both originally A-sides when they were put out. But that's really unusual. Like I said, A&M, they're one of those, we were just discussing this in the last episode, that really like to promote other albums. So you usually got a lot of B-sides with alternate album songs, but quite possibly because that's a reissue memories series, they kept both songs from the same album. But here we got another one of those wonderful Woolworth $1.19 price tags for a Loverboy song, Turn Me Loose, off of that first original Loverboy album, which was great. Those first two, the first one and Get Lucky, they were just great albums, really great albums. And a B-side being a song called Prissy Prissy, off that same first album. I believe this is an original, so they didn't have any other material that time. It would have been a non-album track or another track from the same album. So next up, third episode, third release, we've got something really special to share with you. Rick Ocasek, Something to Grab For, 1982. Now, every time I've ran across Rick Ocasek, I've gotten a little bit talky because, you know, he was the main driving force behind the Cars. I almost said the Doors. The Cars. And, you know, he did a lot of great stuff with the Cars, not so great stuff on his own, but he did a few solo albums, and he started doing them while the Cars were still together. This one is his very first solo single ever off of his first album, Beatitude. And just quickly to go over the Beatitude, you know, the Beatitudes were the 8 blessings by Jesus given in the Sermon on the Mount. But that's not where he took this name from. In the 50s, there was a poetry magazine that put beat and attitude together to form the word beatitude. And that's his reference here. That's where he's coming from with his first album being called Beatitude. It was in reference to that 1950s poetry magazine that he so loved. But what's really cool about this particular disc as well is the B-side being a song, Connect Up to Me. Now that song was originally on the album, but the single version here is actually the album version at 425. But this gets confusing because the CD and the cassette tape, which I have a copy of the cassette tape right here to share with you and show you, they had an extended mix of that song. You can see here that it was the last song on side 1, Connect Up to Me. It contained the extended 12-inch mix running 7 minutes and 37 seconds. But that's only found on that cassette tape and the first CD, the original CD that came out. The album had this 4-minute 25-second version. So it's not really a 45 exclusive edit in any way, but it is different from, if you go by the CD now, this is different from what the versions found on the CD. I don't know, I haven't got a recent release of the CD, so maybe both versions might be found on some later edition, if there has been a later edition of the CD. But anyways, that makes this kind of really interesting and a bit long-winded talk there, I realize. But the picture sleeves that I did recently for new editions in May, we had this one, which was his second release, his second 45 release from the second album that he did. And to give you a little bit more info there, The Cars Shake It Up was in 81. That Beatitude album there, his first solo album, was in 82. Heartbeat City came out in 84. This Side of Paradise, Rick Ocasek's second solo release, which is what this came from, came out in 86. And then Door to Door by The Cars came out in 87. And then Rick Ocasek released his third solo album, his first solo album after the Cars broke up in 1991, called Fireball Zone. So that gives you a little bit more background, a little bit more history on Rick Ocasek, maybe a bit more than some of you out there cared for. But I wanted to, cover the bases there, give as much information as I had to honor old Rick there. He has left us now a few years back, unfortunately. In the first episode of this series, episode 1 of Box 11, we were talking about Day After Day, and I was talking about how I just watched Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, and how the movie ended with this song. And I do believe it was the Badfingers version. But I meant to say, when I was filming that, I wanted to point out that while this came out in 1971, in 1986, a heavy metal band called Savatage did a cover of this song, which is actually also quite good. So if you're a fan of Savatage, or you just like metal in general, check out Savatage, Fight for the Rock album, and you'll find a cover of this Day After Day song by Badfinger that's definitely worth a listen. All right, so moving on, we're getting up to the Eagles' Heartache Tonight, I Know. And that hit number 1 in October of 1979, according to somebody's information here. The vast majority of all of Box 11 came from the same individual. I think I told that story a few episodes back about how the guy had a listing on Craigslist, and he had digitized his whole collection, had went around to numerous shops and sold off what they would take, and I got all his leftovers. And I was kind of excited about it because it had mostly all top 100 songs, and a lot of them were more obscure because the record shops weren't picking them up. This was what he had left over after going to many shops and selling them. So I paid him $40-50. I can't remember now. It's been quite a few years back, but it was $40-50 for about 300 45s, which is an awesome deal, right? And that's what this Box 11 is. So this one here is clearly one that we have covered previously before as well, and it's still got that Teenage Jail on the B side. So this is not this is probably an original edition from when The Long Run came out, clearly marked as the B side. So if you didn't know already, of course, Heartache Tonight is going to be the A side with Teenage Jail, which is a great song, and I love Teenage Jail, but it's clearly going to be the B side here. But I started pulling out a lot of the duplicates that I knew I'd already filmed, I'd already covered, especially if I knew for positive that had the exact same label, the exact same B side. And I've got a box of those, and we'll probably cover those at the end just for the sake of completeness. But for now, yeah, that's one that we have probably shown on the channel already in one of those multiple videos that I've already got posted up there. At this point, 6, 7, 8. This will be 9. This will be 359, video number 359 on the channel. So lots of material up there. If you love what you're seeing here and you want to see a lot more, definitely go visit the Miami Museum homepage for the channel and look through the playlist and or the videos individually, and you will find lots more to entertain you. But here we're moving on with the Spun Gold, which again, that's a re-release. So this is not the original from when it originally came out. But Linda Ronstadt, Hurts So Bad. Good follow-up to Heartache Tonight. Heartache Tonight, Hurts So Bad. But that one hit number 8 in April of 1980, according to the guy's notations. And the B-side here hit number 10 in February of 1980, How Do I Make You? Now, that's kind of interesting because I'm not really familiar by the title with the song How Do I Make You, but who isn't familiar with Linda Ronstadt's Hurts So Bad? Hurts So Bad. Oh, yeah. So, moving on, we've got another reissue here. Atlantic this time with their oldies series. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and this time Mr. Young. Sometimes Young's there, sometimes he's not. And Teach Your Children. And you know, this has got an interesting story too, because Teach Your Children was at #1 on the charts when they decided to release Ohio in response to the shooting at Ohio State University back during a lot of the conflict, during the protests and stuff. And they knocked themselves out of the #1 position with another song. Crosby, Stills, and Nash could have waited. They could have let this song play its days out at #1 and then release that song, but they wanted to hit the moment. They wrote it right away, recorded it, put it out, even with their song at #1, and it dropped. They beat themselves. So that's just an interesting little story on the side about how a band replaced their own #1 song with another #1 song. I'm not sure how many times that has happened, but it did in that particular case with Teach Your Children being replaced by Ohio in the #1 spot. B-side here on this oldies series is Woodstock, written by Joni Mitchell. But I think Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young's version of it actually did better and is more commonly known than her own version, which is often the case sometimes. An artist writes a song, puts it out there, all along the Watchtower, Bob Dylan. How many people know Hendrix's version more than Bob's version? It just is not uncommon for that to happen. So here we've got another Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young still, from many years later. This is off the American Dream album and the song American Dream. And you'll notice too that we've got us a barcode there. That's near the end. This is 1988, according to the date on here. And it was definitely, you see some early 80 ones with barcodes, but it's not common. By the time you get up into the late 80s, most of them have barcodes. And, they died out around 91. That's when the distributors quit paying credits back to the stores to return them, so the stores quit buying them. So that's basically the death to vinyl 45s was in 91. So we were running a bit in overtime, went past 12:30 there. So come on back for part 4. Hope to see you then.